Hi, I'm Michaela, and today I'm going to be sharing with you the experimental process that I went through with the gummy bear experiment and the results that I ended up with. So, I actually took some video footage while I was setting up my experiment because I wanted you to see exactly how I set it up. I actually ended up doing a couple different trials, which you'll see. I'll add the video next. And then after the video, I will just jump into the results, the observations, and the explanation for the observations that I found. For the gummy bear experiment, I decided to do three separate trials. Each row is a different trial. So this row has half a cup water in both of the cups, except for that's just the water back there, and this is the water plus 2 teaspoons salt. That was about as much salt as I could pour in without it having difficulty dissolving. The second row is just 1 cup water in the back with the gummy bear in it. And the front one is 1 cup water plus 3 teaspoons salt. And then this one is the same thing on this row. It's 1.5 cup water and then 1.5 cup water plus 4 teaspoons salt. Also, I tried to think of ways to avoid error, and I added the exact same color gummy bear. I added yellow to each of them because that was the first color I pulled out of the bag and that's what I stuck with. So hopefully that can reduce any kind of error. I know on Blackboard it said that sometimes it doesn't, the results aren't great and it doesn't always take. So I decided to try to avoid any possible error. That's also why I did 3 trials, because I know how long it has to sit in the water, for 6 to 10 hours. And it is currently 12:49 p.m. or a.m. where I live. So when I wake up in the morning, about 8, it'll be done. Okay, so the gummy bear that came straight out of the bag was the control in this experiment for all the following: size, shape, texture, color, and any other point of comparison that I make. So some of the results that are desired from this experiment, if the experiment is conducted properly and there are no errors made, would be that the gummy bear placed in the distilled water would grow drastically. From what I saw, it was about 2 times the size, but again, that varies just by error or just person to person doing the experiment. And the gummy bear that is placed in the saltwater solution would be expected to shrink. So I want to start by talking about hypertonic osmosis. So hypertonic osmosis is when the water is leaving an object. So in this case, the object is the gummy bear and the water is leaving the gummy bear and going into the solution of salt water. So in the first trial with the 3 cups, I don't think I added enough salt because I didn't see any kind of major shrinkage in the gummy bear, in any of the gummy bears that were placed in those cups. However, I decided to do that part again after I originally wanted to just do it once and be done, but I like to see the results instead of just hypothetically know what they're going to be. So the gummy bear in the second trial appeared to be smaller, just slightly, not a whole lot, but it was smaller than the gummy bear taken out of the bag, and it had lost a little of the yellow color. It had turned like a white. I don't think it was the salt on it because it was really, really sticky. And again, the salt was dissolved. So I don't know if it was the salt. It might have been the salt coating on the gummy bear, but it had lost a little of the color. And so it appeared to be more of a pale yellow than like the golden yellow it originally was. It was actually really sticky, like I said, to touch. And it was hard, but it wasn't as hard as the gummy bear that came out of the bag at room temperature. So I'd say like the level of stiffness for that gummy bear was somewhere between the one straight out of the bag and then the one that was placed in the distilled that swelled up. But we'll get to there. We'll get to that point. So yeah, the gummy bear did lose a little of its definition in the saltwater scenario. I think that it just kind of looked deformed, like the arms weren't as defined as they were before. So yeah, that is the hypertonic. So hypertonic again is when the water is leaving the object. So the water was being sucked out of the gummy bear because it needed the environment of the saltwater solution needed that extra water to kind of make up for its lack. Um, so yeah, next I'll talk to you about hypotonic osmosis. Hypotonic osmosis occurs when water molecules travel into an object. So in this case, the water that was in the distilled cup with no salt was traveling into the gummy bear, therefore causing it to swell up. And so since, again, the water molecules are entering the gummy bear and there is nothing that is attracting that water, it causes the gummy bear to swell significantly. So in this case, the gummy bear was really, really slimy to touch. And again, I'll put in some pictures as I'm talking. I'll just put in the pictures over my voice. So the gummy bear was really slimy to touch and it was hard to hold. And when I would try to pick it up, it would break a little bit. And so I had to be very delicate when handling it. So because it was more swollen, it looked to be a little more opaque in color. So whenever the gummy bear is at room temperature and it's hard, it's more condensed. And so the color isn't spread out as much. It was more of a golden color, but when it was swollen, it was opaque. So it had more of a clear color to it. Oops, my computer's went black. So yeah, something that I noticed with the gummy bear that was placed in either the half cup of water, the 1 cup of water, or the 1.5 cup water, it didn't matter how much water was in the cup. The gummy bear only grew to a certain point, and after it reached that point, it didn't grow anymore. It didn't expand anymore. So the amount of water didn't matter there. For the most part, it held its shape, which was super interesting because they were just like these giant, cute little things. I mean, it was interesting to me that it held its shape while the other one didn't. I would expect the salt water to hold it more because it's getting more condensed. And so that was interesting to me. Yeah, so some potential points of error for this that I thought of were, again, in the first trial of the salt water, I didn't add nearly enough salt, so the gummy bears didn't shrink as much. But some ways that I tried to avoid error in this experiment was I used yellow gummy bears in all of the trials just because I didn't know the concentration of specific ingredients in different colors or specific dyes. I didn't know if that would impact the results and the accuracy of this experiment. So instead of worrying about that, I tried to avoid it as much as possible and just use yellow for all of them. I came to the conclusion that the concentration of salt and water was more important than adding more water. So in the saltwater solution, like I was talking about, you have to have more salt in it than you do. So in the 1.5 cups, you needed way more salt than you do in the half cup water. And I did add more. I added 2 teaspoons of salt in the half cup, 3 teaspoons of salt in the 1 cup water, saltwater solution, and 4 teaspoons of salt in the 1.5 cup solution. So I did compensate for that, but I think that I could have compensated a little more and added more salt because, again, it didn't shrink. So, again, another way that I tried to avoid error was I set up multiple trials because I wanted to get it right the first time, but that doesn't always happen, and so that's why I did the saltwater one a second time. So this is all I have for my presentation. Thank you for watching,